The Galactic Council had always preferred humans when they were being polite. Polite humans spoke softly and waited their turn. Polite humans filed paperwork in triplicate, followed protocols older than their own civilizations, and thanked the Council for decisions that quietly bled them dry. Polite humans smiled with their mouths and never with their eyes. The Council mistook this for submission. It wasn't. It was discipline. When humanity arrived on the galactic stage 83 standard cycles ago, they arrived without fanfare. No ancient prophecies. No living gods. No bioengineered war forms or crystalline dreadnoughts. Just compact ships, modular designs, and diplomats who wore plain uniforms with no medals displayed. That had reassured everyone. Empires don't fear what looks temporary. Humans asked questions instead of making demands. They accepted junior seats on committees dominated by species who had been fighting each other since before humans discovered fire. They took contracts no one else wanted, escort duty through pirate-infested lanes, hazardous extraction on unstable worlds, border enforcement between feuding empires who refused to touch each other directly. Humans became useful. And useful things are easy to exploit. The Council praised humanity's measured temperament, while quietly assigning them to the deadliest corridors of space. Human convoys vanished to raiders. Human colonies on fringe worlds burned during misunderstandings. Council investigations followed, lengthy and thorough, and always inconclusive. The human ambassadors never raised their voices. Ambassador Elias Ward was famous for it. Gray hair cropped short. Wrinkles carved by stress, not age. A voice that never shook, even when he was explaining why another human outpost had been written off as an unfortunate loss. "We understand the Council's position," he would say. "Let's keep this civil." That phrase became a joke among Council species. A drinking phrase. Whenever humans lost a vote, or territory, or another generation of young men and women sent to guard someone else's border, someone would mutter, "Keep this civil," and laughter would ripple through alien throats. The veterans, those who had fought humans, not beside them, didn't laugh. They watched. They remembered. Predators don't bare teeth until the moment they decide to bite. The day everything changed began like every other council session, with boredom. The chamber was a cathedral of arrogance, a hollowed asteroid lined with polished stone and holographic banners representing 6,000 member species. Gravity adjusted itself per delegation. Atmospheres layered invisibly. Power hummed under every surface. At the center, the council convened. And this time, the Keth Dominion had the floor. Councillor Vrax towered over most delegates, his chitinous frame encased in ceremonial armor grown rather than forged. His mandibles clicked softly as he moved, a sound that once froze entire populations in fear. Now it was theater. Once again, Vrax declared, voice amplified and translated across the chamber. "Human vessels have violated the Concord. In the Helia Rim, 3 Keth warclaws were destroyed without declaration or warning." Murmurs spread. Holographic displays bloomed, showing wreckage tumbling in the dark. Vrax gestured sharply. "The Dominion demands reparations. And accountability." The word demands hung in the air. Human delegates sat still. They always did. Elias Ward rose slowly from his seat, smoothing the front of his uniform out of habit. He looked tired. He always did. The weight of 100 quiet losses had bent his shoulders just enough that predators mistook him for prey. "Our escort vessels responded to an active distress call," Ward said evenly. "Civilian transports under human protection were under attack." Vrax's mandibles flexed. "Unverified claims." Ward nodded. "The transports were broadcasting on all emergency bands." "Unverified," Vrax repeated louder this time. "And even if true, annihilation was not an appropriate response." There it was. That familiar twist of logic. If humans defended themselves, they were aggressive. If they didn't, they were weak. Either way, the council benefited. Ward inhaled slowly. "We neutralized the threat," he said. The chamber stirred. Vrax stepped forward, claws clicking on stone. "You forget yourself, human." You are guests here. This council tolerates your presence because you have shown restraint. Do not mistake that tolerance for fear. That was the moment. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just quiet. Ward looked around the chamber, meeting eyes, compound, luminous, faceted, orbs that had watched human blood spill for decades and called it balance. Then he did something he had never done before. He didn't apologize. Instead, he tapped the control pad on his wrist. The lights dimmed. Council security stiffened as power levels shifted. Emergency protocols flickered, confused, overridden by authority codes no one remembered granting humanity. A hologram flared into existence at the center of the chamber. It showed the heliorim. Then it kept pulling back. Past trade lanes. Past border markers. Past the neat, comforting edges of council space. Red points began to appear. 1. 10. Hundreds. Thousands. They formed patterns, interlocking, layered, patient. A sharp intake of breath rippled through the chamber. Vrax stared. What is this? Ward folded his hands behind his back. Those, he said calmly, are human fleets. Silence fell like a blade. Prepositioned, Ward continued. Fueled. Crewed. Armed. Powered down understanding safety locks. A council elder hissed. That's impossible. Such a mobilization would violate every treaty we ever signed? Ward finished. Yes. Which is why we didn't mobilize. The hologram shifted. Data streamed in. Fleet classifications updated themselves in real time across council systems. Human Navy, status change pending. Vrax took a step back without realizing it. You threaten the council? Ward looked at him then. Really looked. No, he said softly. I'm explaining context. His finger moved again. Somewhere in the deep black between stars, ancient reactors spun up. Cold lights ignited along hulls no one had ever seen fully armed. Civilian registries quietly vanished, replaced by military designations older than the Concorde itself. Human Navy, active. Doctrine, polite mode, disengaged. Ward's voice carried through the chamber, steady as a gravestone. For 83 cycles, we asked permission. We compromised. We buried our dead quietly so you wouldn't feel uncomfortable. He met Vrax's gaze. That ends today. The first human warship came online. And the galaxy felt it. The first thing the galaxy noticed wasn't the human ships. It was the silence. Human communication channels, once cluttered with endless updates, trade requests, and endless, with all due respect, clarifications, went dark. No explanations, no apologies, no diplomatic small talk. Just a calm, deliberate absence that felt like a vacuum sucking the air from every chamber, every ship, every nerve. Then came the numbers. Fleet registries updated themselves automatically across every council database, and alarms went off in systems that had never expected them. Human ships, ships everyone thought were cargo carriers, science vessels, even civilian freighters, were now listed as Class Omega Combat, fully armed, fully crewed, fully lethal. The Keth Dominion, first to react, scrambled a patrol fleet from Helios' outer rim. Their admirals were confident. Too confident. They're overextended. One barked. They'll retreat. They always retreat. They had not noticed the subtle shift. The humans weren't just ready. They had always been ready. The first contact was anticlimactic. A Keth cruiser dropped out of hyperspace expecting smugglers. It scanned the sector. Nothing. Human ships lay dormant, engines cold, weapons hidden. The Keth hailed them. No response. A warning shot was fired. Then the ship woke. Armor plates peeled back with a hiss of heat, exposing blackened, gleaming hulls beneath. Power signatures spiked. Weapons systems flared online. It wasn't a warship in the traditional sense. It was a trap, an industrial massacre hidden inside a civilian shell. This is Captain Mara Ionescu. The human voice crackled over open comms. Calm. Precise. You fired on a protected convoy. The Keth commander laughed. And? Ionescu exhaled, a sound like the snapping of a spring. Then she pressed the fire sequence. The outer moon, an asteroid no larger than a city, fractured. A massive kinetic beam struck. The Keth fleet never had a chance. 12 seconds. 12 seconds of chaos, screaming, fire, and screaming again. Across the galaxy, similar scenes unfolded. Not everywhere, but strategically. Human fleets didn't chase. They didn't gloat. They struck infrastructure, shipyards, communication hubs, logistics chains, and disappeared. No occupation, no looting, no celebration. Just efficiency. The council panicked. Emergency sessions convened. Explain yourselves! Every species demanded. Messages, petitions, ultimatums, and formal complaints flooded every available channel. Humanity responded with a single phrase broadcast in raw audio, untranslated. We tried it your way. The veterans, those who had fought alongside or against humans, understood instantly. The message wasn't a threat. It was a verdict. Every ally and every enemy suddenly realized the depth of council arrogance. For 83 cycles, they had treated humanity as polite, cooperative, and easily contained. But humans had been observing, calculating, learning, and waiting. Every trade route, every political fracture, every old grudge catalogued, analyzed, prioritized. And now, for the first time, they acted. The Keth Dominion tried to retaliate. Fleets assembled. Boarding teams prepared. Shock weapons calibrated. Every Keth admiral believed in strategy, doctrine, superiority. They were wrong. Human responses were surgical. Civilian vessels retrofitted into war platforms struck from unexpected vectors. Mining lasers vaporized bridge towers. Cargo haulers disgorged autonomous drones with lethal precision. And through it all, there was one constant. Humans didn't shout, didn't gloat, didn't even comment on their kills. They simply acted. The galaxy began to understand a horrifying truth. The humans hadn't overreacted. They had been patient. Polite mode had not been weakness. It had been discipline, restraint honed over decades of exploitation. And now restraint was gone. The council scrambled for damage control. Embargoes, sanctions, emergency votes, they all failed before fleets that were already en route. The human method was simple: isolate, neutralize, dismantle. They didn't need every ship, every weapon, every system. They only needed leverage, and they had calculated leverage down to the decimal. Vrax, for once, didn't know what to do. His voice, the voice that had terrorized sectors, now trembled. You are destabilizing everything! Ward's calm response carried across the chamber. No, Counselor. We are restoring balance. The Keth fleets, once proud and untouchable, vanished like shadows under a sudden sun. Starports collapsed. Command centers burned. Supply lines disintegrated. No one knew exactly how many ships were lost, because the humans didn't count the dead, they counted opportunity. Across the galaxy, alien species whispered the same question. How did we not see this coming? The answer was simple. Humans had been hiding in plain sight. In polite mode, always obedient, always civil, always underestimated. And now polite mode was off. And for the first time, the galaxy truly feared them. The twist came too late for the Council to stop it. They had assumed human action was reactive. That the Heliorim massacre had triggered this sudden mobilization. That humans were angry, yes, but still bounded by morality, by diplomacy, by the invisible chains of restraint the Council had so carefully applauded. They were wrong. Humanity had been preparing. For decades. Quietly. Polite mode had never been weakness, it had been camouflage. Every convoy escorted, every treaty observed, every bureaucratic nod was data collected, networks mapped, vulnerabilities recorded, alliances catalogued. Every time the Council assumed compliance, humanity noted the cracks, the contradictions, the grudges waiting to explode. By the time the Keth fleets arrived at Helior, The humans had already anticipated every maneuver. The destruction of the Helier patrol wasn't random. It was predictable, calculated, surgical. And the humans didn't stop there. The council convened in a panic. 1,000 species argued, shouted, and waved claws and limbs. They will destabilize the Concord. They are a threat to all of us. Ward appeared again in the holofeed, calm, gray hair tousled, eyes sharp with decades of restraint finally released. You've been watching the wrong numbers, he said. Our fleets were never reactive. They were prepositioned for centuries. Every treaty you wrote, every embargo you imposed, every border you drew, we accounted for it. We waited. We prepared. And we acted. At the perfect moment. The chamber erupted in disbelief. Vrax's absence was conspicuous. The Keth Dominion seat sat empty, the insignia cracked in what was clearly no accident. Humans didn't occupy worlds they destroyed. They didn't kill for conquest. They corrected. Systems that had languished under tyrants, colonies that had suffered centuries of neglect, refugee corridors cut off by indifferent powers, they were liberated, defended, given autonomy. The galaxy had no word for it. Humanity called it. Making it right. And then came the coup de grace. The humans turned the tools of diplomacy into weapons. The Council tried sanctions. Humanity rerouted trade routes before any embargo could take effect. They resigned from ceremonial positions the moment a threat was declared. They offered aid to old enemies of their enemies, stoking rivalries carefully, always at the right angle. Civilian shipments carried peacekeepers. Logistics chains delivered relief and devastation in equal measure. All at once, the galaxy realized it had been operating under a dangerous misperception for decades. The humans weren't polite because they lacked power. They had been polite because they chose to be. And now they weren't. Counselors scrambled for containment strategies, but human forces were already beyond reach. Defense grids spun up automatically around strategic points. Supply lines they hadn't even known were critical were suddenly defended with precision that made entire sectors untouchable. Ward's final message, broadcast to every council member simultaneously, was simple. We tried it your way. Silence followed. Not shock. Not all. Silence. Then the elder counselor finally whispered what everyone was thinking. Why now? Ward's eyes, cold and tired, met the camera. Because polite mode was costing us our children. That one line broke more species than any weapon ever could. For decades, human youth had died quietly, while the council deliberated. Humanity had endured. And now humanity had decided the price of restraint was too high. The galaxy didn't understand, and perhaps it never would. Humanity had not sought revenge, they had sought equilibrium. But in doing so, they had rewritten the rules. The Keth Dominion collapsed, warlords rose and fell, and human fleets withdrew just enough to let chaos reorganize itself. And in the vacuum, humans didn't celebrate. They didn't gloat. They left behind automated defenses, grids, and corridors that ensured no one would starve, and no one would dominate the innocent. Humanity had acted, and the galaxy had survived, barely. In quiet corners, species whispered the same fearful truth. Never corner a human. Never mistake kindness for weakness. And never, ever, ask what happens when polite mode turns off. Because the council had seen it once. And once was enough. The war didn't end with fanfare. There were no parades, no banners, no human victory, slogans plastered across the stars. That had never been the point. Humanity didn't fight for glory. They fought for consequence, for survival, for balance, on their terms. Empires fractured. The Keth Dominion imploded from within, splintering into warlords who fought each other over scraps of territory humans had already abandoned. Human forces never occupied the worlds they freed. There was no need. Power vacuums, they understood, were crueler than armies. They let the galaxy punish itself where it had failed, leaving only carefully placed safeguards to protect the innocent. Trade routes were rerouted. Supply chains restored, but not for profit. Not for politics. for stability. Old rivals were given tools to settle scores safely, corridors to evacuate civilians, defenses against exploitation. Humans never asked for thanks, never sought loyalty, never demanded submission. They simply ensured the balance shifted in ways the Council could never have predicted. Polite mode never returned. It didn't need to. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Every species, from the smallest colony to the mightiest empire, recalibrated its doctrines. Never underestimate humans. Never confuse restraint with weakness. Never assume civility means compliance. And yet, in small, almost imperceptible ways, humanity returned to life as it had always lived. On the edge of the frontier, in dusty bars on minor stations, in the quiet corridors of rebuilt colonies, humans laughed, drank, and argued as if the galaxy hadn't just trembled under their power. On one such station, a Sci-Fi engineer leaned against the counter, a glass of synthetic liquor in hand, eyes narrowing. "Do you ever miss it?" he asked a human marine. "The smiling diplomacy? The endless politeness?" The marine snorted, letting smoke curl from a burnished pipe. "Hell no. That was customer service." The engineer raised an eyebrow. "Then what was the war?" The marine paused, staring at the stars beyond the viewport. "That," he said finally, voice low and grim, "was the complaint department." The Sci-Fi laughed softly, and for a moment it felt like a joke. But everyone around them knew the truth. The galaxy would never be the same. Council archives still exist, dusty records and glowing holos of fleets reduced to stardust, treaties shredded, and warnings sent too late. Across 1,000 systems, the phrase, polite mode, became a myth, a whispered tale, a cautionary tale told to young commanders before their first engagement. The galaxy had witnessed it once. And once was enough. Elias Ward, gray now beyond his years, stood in a quiet corner of his flagship, looking at the blinking lights of distant human colonies, at the children playing on dust ball stations, at the fleets quietly guarding what needed guarding. The galaxy owed him nothing. He didn't care. Humanity had survived. Humanity had endured. Humanity had won, on its own terms, quietly, politely, until polite mode turned off. And somewhere in the darkness, across systems that had once underestimated him, he smiled. Because the lesson had been delivered. And the Council, and every alien empire, would never, ever forget it.